It wasn't the shouting that got to me. It wasn't the broken glass, or even the slammed bedroom door. It was the receipt, tucked neatly under my toothbrush, like a parting gift. $847.93, charged to my card at a store I'd never stepped foot in. A boutique that sells things I can't even pronounce, with names like opaline lace and whispered citrus skin balm. I know because I looked it up. At first, I thought it was fraud. Called the number on the back of the card, waited on hold. The woman was polite. No, sir, this was an in-person transaction. She even described the shopper. Long dark hair, red coat, high heels. My heart sank. I stood in the bathroom for 15 minutes staring at that receipt. Then I did what any self-respecting man in his late 30s with anxiety and a desperate need to avoid conflict would do. I made a cup of tea and sat on the couch in total silence, waiting for the war to start. She walked in an hour later like nothing had happened. Shopping bags on her arms, smile like a crescent moon. She looked at me, at the tea, at my shaking hands, and tilted her head. What's wrong with you now? I didn't answer. I just held up the receipt. She rolled her eyes. Actually rolled them. Oh my God, Travis. Are you seriously doing this again? Again? She walked past me like I was background furniture and tossed the bags onto the table. Then, without turning around, she said the line I'll remember even if my memory fails me one day in a nursing home. Do as I say, or get lost. Like it was a switch. Like we were done pretending I had a voice in anything. I wish I could say I stood up and became a man in that moment. That I said something poetic or bold. But I didn't. I sat there. I blinked. I swallowed the lump in my throat. And then, I nodded. I got up, grabbed her suitcase from the closet, and began folding. She didn't take it seriously until I zipped it shut. What are you doing? She asked, laughing. You're such a drama queen. Put that down. I didn't answer. I packed her second bag, then her third. I unplugged her straightener, wound up the cord, and placed it carefully beside her overpriced lip gloss collection. She followed me around the house, escalating. Travis, stop. I said stop. What the hell are you doing? You're not actually serious right now. You're not going to make me leave. You don't get to do that. But apparently, I did. Because 15 minutes later, her 3 bags were lined up by the front porch like passengers waiting for a taxi. I didn't scream. I didn't swear. I just looked at her and said, quietly, this is me getting lost. I closed the door. She stood out there for an hour, shouting, threatening, crying, pacing. Then a car pulled up. I didn't look out the window. 3 days later, her mom called me. I picked up thinking maybe it was an apology, maybe some closure. But her voice was trembling. She said Bianca had done something I needed to know about. Something big. And it started with what she'd taken with her that night. Something I hadn't noticed was missing. When her mom called, I nearly didn't answer. The number was unknown, and I was in the middle of pretending to clean the kitchen while actually doing nothing but thinking. Thinking about that receipt. Thinking about the bags I'd packed. Thinking about what the hell had happened to the version of me that used to laugh without permission. But something made me swipe up and say hello. And what came next? I don't know how to explain it. Her voice didn't sound like the Bianca I knew. It was ragged, rushed, and confused. At first, I thought maybe it was a prank. But then she said, Travis? It's Diane, Bianca's mom. I didn't know who else to call. I felt my stomach drop. Not because I missed Bianca. Not because I wanted to talk to her mother, either. But because there was something in her tone I hadn't heard in months. Genuine fear. She's in trouble, she said. She's not answering my calls. And her friend dropped her off 2 nights ago in a motel outside Ashbury with nothing but a red handbag and a bottle of something. I froze. What motel? She didn't say. Just said she was trying to punish someone who didn't deserve peace. Then she hung up. And I found something in her room, Travis. Something you need to see. It's addressed to you. Now let me stop right there. I know how it sounds. I know how easy it is to dismiss something like that as post-breakup theatrics. But trust me, there was nothing theatrical about the way my heart started pounding in my ears. The moment I heard those words, everything slowed down. I didn't ask what it was. I didn't even ask why it was in her mom's house. I just told Diane to text me the address, grabbed my coat, and left. It was storming by the time I got to her place. Windy, loud, leaves slapping against the windshield like nature was trying to stop me. When I pulled into the driveway, she was already outside in her robe, holding a thin manila envelope in her hand like it burned to touch it. She looked at me like I was the last person on earth she wanted to see, and also the only one she could. She handed me the envelope without saying a word. It had my name scrawled across the front in Bianca's handwriting. But that wasn't the disturbing part. The disturbing part was what was inside. There were three things. First, a Polaroid photo of me sleeping on the couch, taken from behind the hallway door. I never saw or heard her take it. Second, a list of bank login credentials, all mine, neatly typed, with little notes next to each entry like, change after April, and try access via mobile on Sundays. Third, a printed plane ticket, one way, under my name, booked to an airport I'd never been to, in a city I'd never heard her mention. Date of departure? Tomorrow morning. I looked up at her mom and said, "What is this?" She just whispered. She said she was going to reset your life for you. I didn't speak. I couldn't. My legs started shaking. I sat down on the cold front step and tried to breathe. Because suddenly, I realized it wasn't just about money. It was about control. About erasing me in slow motion and replacing me with someone she could shape. And for the first time in all of this, I wasn't just heartbroken or angry. I was terrified. And then I remembered something chilling. The night I packed her bags, I'd locked the front door. But I never changed the key code. I raced back home. And what I found waiting for me inside was worse than I ever imagined. The ride back to my house felt like I was chasing a ghost. Every light turned red. Every intersection tested my patience. My fingers gripped the steering wheel so hard they turned pale. I wasn't even sure what I was expecting to find. Maybe nothing. Maybe a locked door and my own paranoia. But deep down, I knew better. As soon as I pulled into the driveway, I saw it, a single porch light I never leave on. It flickered. That tiny, pathetic flicker set off alarms in my brain. My hands shook as I climbed out of the car. The air smelled strange, like old perfume and burned plastic. The front door was still shut, locked. But when I entered the key code and pushed it open, the cold silence inside didn't feel like home. It felt like a trap. Everything looked the same, at first. The shoes were by the door, mail still stacked where I left it. But the temperature was off, colder, as if the windows had been open. I walked cautiously through the hallway, turning on lights. The kitchen was untouched, the fridge still humming, the dining table still set with the mug I left there yesterday. But when I stepped into the living room, I froze. There, on the center of the coffee table, was an open laptop. My laptop. It was on, plugged in, and a document was open on the screen. Not minimized, not hidden, just sitting there like it had been waiting for me. I approached slowly, hard in my throat, and read the title. The Reprogramming of Travis L. I swear I stopped breathing. The document was 11 pages long. I skimmed the first few lines and immediately felt like the ground beneath me wasn't real anymore. Subject shows patterns of compliance when guilt is introduced. Leans heavily on routine. Avoids conflict to maintain emotional neutrality. High potential for dependency when isolated from external support systems. Financially disciplined. This requires breaking early. It read like notes from a clinical study. But every detail, every phrase, it was me. My routines. My flaws. My reactions to arguments. My habits. It listed times I left for work, how long I stayed in the shower, what days I called my sister, even which snack I bought when I was anxious, the pistachio granola bars I always thought were my guilty secret. I scrolled faster. Paragraphs described how to create controlled instability to make me emotionally reliant. Techniques to inject confusion, then relief. Patterns of denial, followed by shallow affection to reset tension. I was reading a psychological manual on how to break me. And then, at the bottom of the document, was a section labeled Phase 3, Closure. It simply said, subject will initiate separation once threat is implied. Allow illusion of power. Return for final imprinting. Reassert financial claim under distress conditions. Use family as back channel. That's when the pieces began snapping together in my head, one by one. The weird plane ticket. Her mother's call. The carefully planted receipt. The staged argument. The threats, followed by silence. It hadn't been a meltdown. It had been a blueprint. I backed away from the laptop, pulse racing in my ears, and moved through the rest of the house. I checked every room. Every closet. Under the bed. Nothing looked stolen, but everything felt watched. I checked the back door. Still locked. The garage? Closed. Then I made it to the guest room. I didn't use it often. It mostly stored her painting stuff, brushes, canvases, half-finished ideas. I opened the door and nearly dropped to my knees. Pinned to the wall were dozens of printed photos. Of me. In the backyard. Sleeping. On work calls. Shopping. Eating. Some taken through windows. Some from inside the house. Angles I never noticed. Expressions I didn't know I made. And in the center of all of it was a sticky note with my name written in bubble letters like some sick joke, Travis, love. I backed out. Slammed the door shut. Grabbed my phone. I didn't know whether to call the cops, a lawyer, or a therapist. I ended up calling none of them. Instead, I called my sister. She hadn't heard from me in months, not really. Bianca hated when I unpacked emotions with outsiders. My sister picked up on the second ring and said, Trav, are you okay? You sound like you saw a ghost. I didn't see a ghost, but it felt like one had been living in my house the whole time, wearing expensive shoes and telling me to man up. And I knew this wasn't over. Because if she could get in once, if she knew my patterns this well, she'd come back. Only this time, I wasn't sure I'd be able to smile and pack bags. Because now I wasn't just heartbroken. I was being hunted. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the floor of my hallway with every light in the house turned on. My back pressed against the wall, phone in hand, a kitchen knife beside me, not that I'd know how to use it. The room with the photos stayed shut, like a wounded part of the house I couldn't look at without shaking. Every sound made me jump. My own breath felt too loud. The longer I sat, the more I realized I'd been living in a story I didn't write. She had been scripting it. Or worse, running experiments on me. And not once had I questioned it. Because I wanted to be a nice guy. A patient guy. The kind of man women say they want until they meet someone louder. At 6:17 a.m., as the sky began to smudge pink behind the trees, I heard it. 3 soft knocks at the door. Not loud. Not desperate. Calm. Calculated. I didn't move. I watched the door from down the hall, holding my breath. A pause, then a 4th knock, this one longer, slower. I stood up quietly, stepped into the kitchen, grabbed my phone, and peeked through the side window. It wasn't Bianca. It was a man. Late 40s, maybe. Shaved head. Wearing a windbreaker that didn't match the weather. He wasn't holding anything. No clipboard, no delivery box, no phone. Just standing there, hands at his sides, eyes straight ahead. I froze. He wasn't moving. He wasn't even trying to ring the bell. Just waiting. Like he knew I'd be watching. After a full minute, he turned around and walked down the steps. Not rushed. Just done. Like his part was over. Then I heard the vibration. A text. From a number I didn't recognize. You missed orientation. Your schedule will adjust accordingly. No name. No context. And the moment I read it, the camera light on my laptop turned on. My laptop, still open on the coffee table, now glowing like an open wound in the darkened room. I ran over, slammed it shut, yanked out the charger, and threw the whole thing in the bathtub like that would somehow fix anything. I stood there, heaving, knees buckling slightly. My phone buzzed again. New email. Subject line. Are you ready for the next lesson? I clicked it open without thinking. Inside was a single video attachment. I hesitated. Every instinct told me not to play it. But curiosity is a venom that numbs your fear before it kills your common sense. I pressed play. It was footage of me. Sitting in the kitchen. Drinking tea. Same clothes. Same movements. But it wasn't from inside the house. It was from outside. Through a narrow window I forgot even existed, the one near the pantry, slightly obscured by ivy. The footage was timestamped from 3 nights ago. The night I packed her bags. But here's the worst part. She was in the frame, too. Just barely. A shadow behind me. Standing still. Watching. Waiting. I never noticed. And then the video cut to black. A new message appeared instantly in my inbox. We don't blame you for reacting. We're just here to help you reach the next version of yourself. That was the moment I realized something deeper was happening, something beyond just her. Bianca wasn't acting alone. Or maybe she never had been in control to begin with. Because who were we? And what the hell was the next version of myself? My head was spinning. I threw my phone across the room, grabbed my jacket, and got in the car. I didn't have a destination. I just drove. Past the edges of town. Past the last gas station. Into the woods beyond the north edge of Wellington, where my uncle used to take me to fish when I was 12. I parked the car, turned off the engine, and stared out at the trees. And that's when I saw it. A folded piece of paper wedged under my windshield wiper. I hadn't seen it when I got in. It simply read, "You're not supposed to run. You're supposed to evolve." I looked up. No cars. No footsteps. No sound but the rustling of wind through trees that now felt too tall. Somewhere out there, someone was watching me. Maybe multiple people. And I had no idea how deep this thing went. But I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't about love anymore. It was about ownership. I didn't drive home right away. I sat in the car, holding that folded note like it might start burning through my skin. You're not supposed to run. You're supposed to evolve. Those words bounced in my head like a broken metronome, ticking off beat after beat of dread. I eventually left the woods, but I didn't go back to my house. I couldn't. Not yet. I drove to a 24-hour diner in a neighboring town and sat in a back booth where nobody would look twice at the pale guy nursing black coffee with trembling hands. I hadn't eaten since the morning before, but my stomach felt like it had been replaced by a nest of angry birds. I kept replaying everything: Bianca's twisted behavioral notes, the man at my door, the emails, the video, the stalker-like obsession. And now this. An outside force. Something orchestrated. Coordinated. And I didn't even know what they wanted from me. But as I stared into the bitter swirl of my untouched coffee, I remembered something that had slipped through the cracks: Declan. Declan and I had been roommates before Bianca ever entered my life. We'd shared a crappy apartment above a vape shop. He'd seen me at my worst, during the Depression years, and I'd seen him through his spiral with painkillers after his divorce. We weren't best friends, but we'd survived things together. And then, 2 months after Bianca moved in, he just vanished from my life. No argument. No closure. He stopped returning texts, blocked me on social, and never came to any of the guys' game nights. At the time, I thought it was just another casualty of drifting adulthood. Now I wondered if he'd known something back then that I didn't. I scrolled through old emails until I found a backup address he once used when his main one got hacked. I shot him a desperate message. I didn't explain much. Just, "Declan, it's Travis. I know we haven't talked in forever, but I think something's happening to me. Something serious. I don't even know who I can trust anymore. If you ever felt like I deserved the truth, please call me. Please." I expected nothing. But 5 minutes later, my phone rang. I didn't even look at the screen. I answered so fast I nearly dropped the phone. "Declan?" He didn't say hello. He just said, "I knew it would get to you eventually." I blinked. What? What are you talking about?" I warned her, man, he continued, voice tight, like he was walking and whispering at the same time. "I told her you weren't the right type. That you were too soft. But she said that made you perfect. That you'd take longer to break. That it would feel more earned." Those were her words. My throat closed up. "You knew?" I asked, my voice coming out like a croak. "I didn't know at first," he said. "But the moment I saw her looking through your planner while you were in the shower, I saw the smile on her face. It wasn't affection. It was calculation." He went quiet for a moment, then added, "I left because I couldn't stop it. She was already in your head. You were changing. Getting smaller. So I bailed. Call me a coward. I don't care. I couldn't be part of it." I didn't even realize I was crying until the waitress brought more napkins and gave me a worried look. I nodded like I was fine and turned away. "Do you know what this is?" I asked. "What they want? Why they're doing this?" Declan sighed. "It's not about you, Trav. It never was. It's about data, patterns, reactions. These people, they test personalities like software builds. You weren't her first subject. You're just the latest. But she always leaves something behind. A message. A clue. That's how she marks the ones that evolve." I asked where. He told me to check the floorboards in the laundry room. I drove home with numb limbs and adrenaline pushing me forward like a ghost in my own bones. The house felt like a trap when I entered. Every light still burned from the night before. I moved quickly to the laundry room, a space I rarely paid attention to. Just a washer, a dryer, and an old rack of mismatched socks. I tapped the wooden floor. One board gave a different sound. I pried it up with a screwdriver. There, tucked beneath, was a small metal tin. I opened it. Inside was a folded index card. On it, in neat red ink, were 6 words. "Evolution occurs when the host breaks." And beneath it, my name. Not written, printed, laminated, and attached to a tag that said, Cycle 14. I fell to my knees. I wasn't in a relationship. I was in a program. The word host wouldn't leave my mind. I sat in the laundry room for an hour with that damn card in my hands, rereading the 6 words over and over. Evolution occurs when the host breaks. It wasn't just cruel, It was clinical. Detached. Like I was a lab rat that didn't respond correctly and needed reconditioning. The laminated name tag with Cycle 14 glued to the bottom made it worse. It confirmed the one thing I hadn't let myself believe yet. I wasn't the only one. How many others had there been? How many people had Bianca run through like software? Were they all men like me, quiet, soft-spoken, deeply apologetic for their own existence? Was that the pattern she sought? I texted Declan again, begging for more. He replied with one sentence. You want real answers? Find Nadine. That name meant nothing to me. I asked who she was, and all he sent back was a set of coordinates. Not an address. Coordinates. I plugged them into my phone. The location pointed to an abandoned tech campus 30 miles outside of Cleveland, a place that was once supposed to be a wellness hub but went bankrupt halfway through construction. It had become one of those eerie shells of potential. The kind of place urban explorers take selfies in and swear they saw shadows move. I shouldn't have gone, but I did. I arrived at dusk, armed with nothing but my phone, a flashlight, and a stomach lined with fire and ice. The campus was worse than I imagined. Half-finished buildings, hollow interiors, broken glass reflecting the pink wash of the dying sky. We'd swallowed the stairwells. Spray paint covered the signs. Everything was silent except the hum of insects and the faint tap of my own breathing. I followed the pin on the map to what looked like a collapsed wellness center, the skeleton of a yoga studio, and an empty pool that had never been filled. When I got close to the center of the lot, my phone buzzed. New message. Unknown number. Stay near the water. She sees movement. I nearly dropped my phone. I scanned the horizon, heart hammering in my throat. I wanted to run, but I didn't. I sat on the lip of the pool and waited. For what? I didn't know. 30 minutes passed. Then 45. The sun dipped below the trees. The air turned sharp. Then I heard the voice. Not a scream. Not a whisper. Just a voice, like someone had leaned directly into my ear. You're late. I spun around, but no one was there. Then, from the shadows of the old maintenance corridor, she stepped out. Thin, pale, clothed in 3 layers of mismatched garments like she hadn't shopped in years. Her hair was gray at the roots, dyed black halfway down. She held a cracked phone in one hand, but she wasn't looking at it. She was looking at me. You're from Cycle 14, she said. My mouth went dry. Who are you? She smiled, but it didn't touch her eyes. Nadine. Cycle 4. Only one who walked out without a handler. I had no idea what that meant. She motioned for me to follow. We walked in silence through the crumbling halls until we reached a room that looked like an old observation chamber. Monitors lined the walls. Dust-covered keyboards. Wires chewed by mice. She pulled open a drawer and revealed folders. Real paper. Names. Photos. Charts. Bianca's name was on 3 of them. She's not your problem, Nadine said. She's a function. A component. Like an interface. The real minds behind the cycles don't speak. They only watch. I couldn't process any of it. Why me? Because you cracked late. They thought you'd been sooner. The longer it takes, the more valuable the data. Especially emotional regression and attachment loops. You were stubborn. You asked too many questions. That annoyed them. And what happens now? I whispered. She looked at me like I'd just asked if fire could be cold. They already started the next trial. While you were busy packing her bags, she was already grooming subject 15. I staggered back. Wait, she's doing it again? To someone else? Right now. Nadine nodded. She never stops. None of them do. They cycle through people like they're recoding broken machines. Some recover. Some don't. Some disappear completely. I sat down hard on a concrete block. You're saying this is bigger than Bianca? Nadine walked to the corner of the room and pulled down a dusty projection screen. Behind it was a wall covered in photos. Not just mine. Dozens of people. Men. Women. Even kids. All tagged. All marked. One caught my eye. It was me. Years ago. From a street fair I barely remembered. Smiling, holding a Chio, wearing my high school hoodie. I've never seen this picture before, I said. Nadine didn't flinch. They've been watching you since before she ever said hello. That was the moment I broke. Truly broke. I slid to the floor, gripping my temples, trying to breathe through the nausea. Because everything in my life, every interaction, every coincidence, every hurt and betrayal, suddenly felt less like chance and more like design. And just as I was about to ask Nadine what I should do, she leaned down and whispered, They don't erase you when you're broken, Travis. They erase you when you stop asking why. I didn't drive home after I left Nadine. I couldn't. Not after what I saw on that wall, all those faces, pinned and labeled like digital inventory. Not after hearing that I wasn't chosen, but tracked, measured, watched. My entire life reduced to a delayed reaction in some twisted experiment. I ended up sleeping in the backseat of my car, parked behind an abandoned church in some town whose name I never bothered to learn. When the morning light finally broke through the cracked windshield, I felt like a different person. Not stronger. Just hollow. Like something had been scooped out while I wasn't looking. I turned on my phone. It was flooded. Texts. Missed calls. Notifications from accounts I never created. All from one name, Bianca. But not just Bianca. There were versions, Bianca_mirror, B124.Travis, Bianca Actual, even one simply titled, Comeback. Each account sent something different. Voice notes, GPS pins, screenshots of our old text with my replies rewritten. The creepiest one was a photo of my front door from inside the house. Timestamped 15 minutes ago. She was in my home. Or someone was. I didn't have time to hesitate anymore. I called Declan. He didn't answer. I called Nadine. No response. I didn't know what I expected from either of them. Some master plan? A set of instructions on how to fight back against people who didn't exist on paper? Instead, I drove straight home, heart hammering, eyes twitching from the sleepless night. As I pulled into the driveway, the world around me felt too still. The wind didn't move. No birds. No passing cars. Even the clouds hung motionless, like someone had hit pause on the sky. The front door was slightly open. I stepped inside slowly, fists clenched, unsure what I'd do if she was actually there. But there she was. Bianca stood in the center of my living room. Same black coat. Same red lipstick. Same look she gave me that night. Not sadness, not anger, but certainty. Like I was always going to end up right back here, staring at her, broken and confused. I left the door open on purpose, she said softly, turning to face me. I wanted to see if you'd come back without being told. I didn't come back, I replied, my voice flat. I came to end this. She smiled. You think this is about endings? I looked around. The place was untouched, cleaner than I remembered it. The laptop was gone. The pictures. The folders. All of it scrubbed like it had never happened. The only thing that remained was the scent, vanilla and something sharper. The one she always wore when she wanted me to feel safe. I met Nadine, I said, testing her reaction. Her smile faltered. Just slightly. She told me about the cycles. The handlers. All of it. Bianca stepped closer, tilting her head. And what do you think she is, Travis? Some whistleblower? A survivor? She's not out of the program. She's a byproduct. A loop that never closed. I didn't understand. She was Cycle 4, I said. She warned me. Helped me see what this really is. Bianca laughed, low and bitter. She was designed to help you see. She's part of the sequence. You don't evolve unless you believe you've escaped something. That's how it works. You rebel, you discover, you think you're waking up. But we wrote the script. I felt the blood drain from my face. You're lying. No, she whispered, stepping even closer now. I'm showing you that even your rebellion has a file number. Everything you've done was part of the curve. The panic, the paranoia, the drive into the woods, even the moment you broke down and called your sister. She pulled something from her pocket, a thin device, no bigger than a credit card. She tapped it once, and a soft blue glow lit up her face. Behind her, the TV screen blinked on. And then, there I was. Not live footage. Recordings. Months' worth. Me eating alone. Me brushing my teeth. Me crying in the laundry room. Me packing her bags. All in a grid. Dozens of clips, side by side, looping in perfect synchronization. You were Cycle 14.2, she said. You think we didn't record 14.1? Or 14.0? Or the discarded variants? I couldn't move. I was staring at a timeline of myself, repeating behaviors I didn't remember repeating. One version flinched at a slamming door. Another paced for hours. Another tore open drawers like he was searching for something. What is this? I asked, my voice breaking. This is you, stripped down to predictability, she said. You kept thinking you were acting out of free will. But we knew when you'd run. When you'd crack. When you'd beg. You followed every pattern. Even the part where you'd try to confront me. My body swayed. The walls seemed to warp inward. I didn't know what was real anymore. But this is the good news, Travis, she whispered. You're close. You're so close to what they call evolution. You're almost ready to be something more. Something they can't anticipate. I looked at her and finally saw the glitch, the crack behind the mask. Her eye twitched. Her hand trembled. Whatever control she had, it was slipping. And that meant someone else was watching this moment, grading it, waiting to see what version of me would surface. So I did the one thing she didn't expect. I stepped forward and hugged her. Her breath caught. She stiffened. For one brief second, the illusion shattered. Because she wasn't expecting affection. Not after all this. Not when she'd reduced me to a file in a system of algorithms. You forgot, I whispered in her ear. I was never trying to escape you. Then I reached behind her, grabbed the device from her pocket, and crushed it in my hand. The screen blinked out. Her eyes went wide. And I realized. That was the first unscripted action in the entire cycle. Bianca staggered back as if I'd hit her, though I never raised a hand. The device I'd crushed sparked once in my palm, then crumbled into pieces like a toy that was never meant to last. Whatever signal it sent, whatever stream it fed, it stopped. She stared at me, blinking fast, and for the first time in all the months I'd known her, she looked unsure. "Do you realize what you just did?" she whispered. "Yes," I said, my voice steady. "For once, something that wasn't part of your plan." The monitors across the room stayed black. The file she used to control me, gone. The cycle was over, not with violence, not with a dramatic explosion of justice, but with a single, quiet refusal to play my part. She didn't speak. Her jaw trembled. And then something unexpected happened. Bianca sat down. Not to threaten, not to reset the loop. She just sat. Her shoulders sagged like someone who hadn't slept in 100 years. "I used to be someone," she murmured, not looking at me. "Before I got absorbed into this. Before the handlers, the programming, the roles. You were never supposed to matter. But you made me hesitate. That's not supposed to happen." I didn't know whether to believe her. Part of me still feared it was another layer of manipulation. But another part, the part that had been silent for too long, understood. Even puppets get tired of the strings. I walked out of the house that night without another word. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't leave a note. I left everything behind, my furniture, my laptop, my routine. My old life felt like a stage I'd been forced to perform on, and I was finally stepping off. I drove until my gas tank had emptied in a sleepy coastal town 3 states away. No cameras, no drones, no trackers. Just foggy streets, quiet waves, and the occasional stranger who nodded without asking questions. I rented a tiny cabin above a bait shop. The bed creaked. The sink dripped. But the silence? It was mine. No fake profiles. No automated voices. No shadows behind curtains. Just me. Just Travis. Not Subject 14. Not a host. Just a man trying to remember who he used to be. In the weeks that followed, I found something unexpected. Peace. I started reading again. I kept a notebook by my bed, not for journaling trauma, but for sketching whatever came to mind. I called my sister and apologized for pulling away. She cried, and so did I. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And Bianca? I never saw her again. Maybe she was decommissioned. Maybe she ran. Or maybe she evolved, too. All I know is that the day I hugged her, I stopped being their experiment. I stopped waiting for permission to act or for someone else to define my value. That hug, small, quiet, human, broke their code in a way they never accounted for. Because no system, no matter how advanced, can predict kindness, especially from someone who was supposed to be broken. So now I wake up each morning without fear. The nightmares come less often. The shakes are almost gone. I live simply. I speak carefully. And when people ask why I moved here, I just smile and say, I needed to be somewhere that wasn't watching me. And that's the truth. Because sometimes survival isn't loud. It doesn't kick down doors or expose the monster behind the curtain. Sometimes, survival is just choosing to live your life, quietly, freely, and entirely your own. And for the first time in years, I am no longer afraid.